Your Majesties, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for always returning. Trust you and yours are well, and you're loving yourself and others like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support, to our anonymous supporters, channel members. All of you gift us super thanks, my esteemed subscribers, Your Majesties. Thank you so much. I have a video about the reason why we are all kings and queens. We mustn't come directly from one earthly royalty before we are. As far as we are of this race, of this color, all right, we're royalty. That is going to be in another video, so stick around because I guess some people will feel somehow when I call you majesty. Some people feel like, oh, it's only God that is the majesty, it's only God that is the whatever you. All right, today we are going back to history. Yes, that's what we do to debunk the lies that have been existing for ages past. And today we will talk about the black people, how they charted the stars and the planets 10,000 BC. You get that right? How the black people, how Africans, all right, charted the stars and planet 10,000 BC. You know, when you talk about history, what comes to mind is Greece. What comes to mind is Rome. What comes to mind is, it's hard. It's difficult to just immediately resort to the melanated people, to Africa. All right, your mind will just be roaming around some other things that they might have put down in some books that you might have read. But the fact still remains that there was no Greece until 833 BC. There was no Greece until 833 BC. And this we're going to see very soon. You know, when we keep saying this, that we are all connected to the motherland. It's not because Africa is lobbying to get people to come with her. It's not because of anything. It's because it's the fact. All right, I'm going to take you to that. Now, I brought some discussion here some time ago where we discussed about Professor Kihura Nkuba, where he said that the world is not as old as they want you to believe it is. The world is much more older. All right, they want to tell you, oh, Adam and Eve started, so we started with them, and that's how the world started. Now, what are you going to say? What's your justification about civilization that have been in existence for thousands of years? Because if we're going to follow the biblical history, then the world is just roughly 3,000 years or thereabouts. All right. Now, what happens to what was existing before that time, before this whole story of you and me? What happened to those stories?
You will have an excursion that will bring you into the facts. First of all, in order for you to read a book, you must understand writing, and primarily coming from an alphabet. When the Africans along the Nile were writing in what you call in Western terms hieroglyph, in the correct term medunecha. Medunecha is what the Greek call hieroglyphs. And remind you again, there is no Greece until 833 when Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Africans along the Nile had already in 10,000 BC, I refresh your mind about that. In 10,000 BC, the Africans made a calendar called the stellar calendar, based upon the movement of the stars and moons around this planet, the planet Earth. There was no Adam and Eve yet mentioned because there was no Jew to start a book called the Old Testament or Holy Torah. Thus, no Genesis yet. The Africans at a place, if you went to Egypt tonight or tomorrow with me, you will arrive the next day, and I can take you to a place called Esna. the temple of Khnum at Esna. And in that temple on the wall, you would see God Khnum making man on his potter's wheel out of clay. The Jews copied that and presented it, and you believe that that was the first time man ever conceived of the concept of making man from clay. And you believe that the Jews had something to it. Not at all. The Jews copied it from the Africans when they allegedly were in Egypt. Let's go further. Those same Africans revised their calendar in 10,000 BC. In 4100 BC, instead of the stellar calendar, they started another calendar called the solar calendar, based upon the Earth in relationship to the sun. That calendar set the basis of the present calendar you use. It had 365 and 1/4 day, corrected each 7th year. There were 13 months to the year, 30 days for 12 months, and 1 month of 5 days. The Ethiopian government still have the 12 month of 30 and the 1 month of 5 days. In Egypt, the farmers use the same 13-month calendar. Again, I must remind you, there isn't a single Jew in the world yet. Abraham the first isn't born. He isn't going to be born until the 13th dynastic period. And I know it's hard for you to conceive of a time when people had religions and there was no Christianity, there was no Judaism, and there was no Islam yet. They came way later, copied from the Africans. These Africans that I'm talking about established the basis of their religion and certain moral principles. The moral principles are called the 42 admonitions of Goddess Ma'at. The Hebrews adopted this, 10 out of these 42, and called them the 10 Commandments, and attributed them to an Egyptian, an African of Egypt they called Moses. But stop and think. Where did the Jews get the information? You do not have a single Jew in the world who wrote anything up until this period of time. But all along the Nile, you have what is called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Ani, the Papyrus of Hunefa, and various papyrus, the word papyrus meaning paper. Along the Nile, you also have the Africans who had produced not only these moral concepts, and let me repeat one or two for you. Hail Ma'at. Ma'at was the goddess of justice. The Supreme Court of the United States copied, during the time of Washington and others, they copied the symbol of the Africans of Egypt and Ethiopia, the symbol of justice, the lady holding a scale and each level. Not like your Supreme Court, however. Your Supreme Court have one scale up and one scale down. That's not justice. That is just this. Justice is when both scales are level. They have placed in the woman's hand a sword. The Africans did not place a hand. Now, this woman is called Hathor. In your Judeo-Christian Bible, Islamic Bible, she is mentioned at the golden calf. The writers in your Bible willfully distorted the fact and failed to say it is not the golden calf she was called. It was a symbol of the golden calf, but she was called Hathor. If you go to Egypt, you will go to a place called Dendera, and you will see the temple of Goddess Hathor there. Furthermore, you have been taught in your educational system that the Greeks, or a particular Greek by the name of Hippocrates, gave to the world medicine, and he's called the father of medicine. That shouldn't surprise you, because Betty Goodman is called the father of swing. Although he went to Lionel Hampton, Count Basie, and others to learn swing, he became the father of swing. Now, if you control the printing press, you could make yourself the father of anything. You could call yourself the father of the moon. You can write anything you want. The point is, let us prove it. We don't have Hippocrates until 333, before the Common Era. You may call it before the Christian era, or BC, as you may say.
Your Majesties, we heard all that, and this validates the teaching of Professor Kihura that I mentioned, that over 3.3 million years ago, life started in the continent of Africa. Along the Nile, life started in the continent of Africa. And it still went further to let us know that nothing is new. It's just a repetition of what had existed. Because sometimes we see things and we're like, oh, it has never happened before. There's nothing that is happening right now that haven't happened before. Everything is a process, like it's a continuous process, the reoccurrence. It comes, it happened again. And you're gonna see the evidence of this, of what I'm saying in fashion. Fashion and designs, maybe some of what we have in our houses, some of what we put on as clothes. It's a process. It comes and goes and come back and then maybe revamped in one way or the other by those present at that time, and it continues like that. But it's never new. Sometimes people forget about it and it's like, oh, it's old now because they have adopted the previous one that existed before that time. And there'll be a time they're going to let go of that one and go back to this other one they've rejected or they've dropped. That is a process of life. So there is nothing new to the African mind, to the African soul, to the African spirit, to the melanated being on the surface of this earth. And that's why some persons are like, this age and time, our ancestors are returning in the form of you and I, all right? Because the rates at which we get to understand things right now is different from our own parents. And it's the truth, is the fact. So I would want you to ponder upon this and leave your comments and thoughts there at the section. We're going to expatiate more in subsequent videos. And I just hope that we get to what we should get to. I will see you in my next one. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive. Always your majesties. Bye for now.